I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here today with Juliana Vida, Chief Technical Advisor for Public Sector at Splunk. Juliana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wyatt. It's always great to be with you.
Well, let me start by asking, what does IT modernization mean in 2021 from your perspective?
Well, I think coming off the last year of the pandemic, it probably means something a little bit different than before. But as always, it really truly means saying goodbye to your legacy technology and moving into a modern future, like mostly with cloud, some kind of hybrid cloud environment. And I say that especially coming off the pandemic because of all the accelerated plans that we saw agencies put into place because of not being able to work from the office, quite frankly, and being cut off from the world in the ways that we all used to be accustomed to interacting with the world. And I just want to remind people, you may not be aware that agencies and organizations in the government still spend about 75% of their IT and cyber budgets maintaining legacy technology. Think about that. It's time to stop that because it's not only keeping you from delivering exceptional citizen services and having security and being able to be efficient and effective, but it's a waste of your money. So now is the time. Last year was the proof of concept, if you will. It was the burning platform, choose your analogy, and it's time to make the investment in the right way instead of continuing to spend money on technology that is not going to help you.
Well, how did you see the pandemic actually affect the need to modernize more rapidly in government?
Actually, of course, with all the bad things that came with the pandemic, I think one of the good things was that it helped us shatter some paradigms that we've had as a country, as a society, and the way that we just assumed work had to be done, and the way we assumed we had to visit our doctor and get our groceries, et cetera. So the pandemic came along and said, hey, most of that isn't true. You actually don't need to be in an office building to be productive, or to spend time in the doctor's waiting room to go see somebody face to face to just have a conversation, et cetera. So all of those things I think are good. That as human beings, we are averse to change. We like our habits. We like to do things the way we've always done. And the pandemic came along and said, nope, not anymore. And so that's where I say it pressurized agencies and organizations to do things that a lot of them knew they wanted to do anyway. They had plans on the shelf, or they wanted a disaster recovery plan, but never had the money to fund it. Well, now it was time to put those plans into action. And so that's what I mean by how the pandemic accelerated IT modernization. And for those organizations that used the opportunity to put those plans in motion, they were able to keep their workforce working. They were able to keep people healthy, students learning faster than organizations that didn't. And the two technologies that really enabled that acceleration of modernization are, like I said, cloud, any kind of cloud environment, hybrid cloud environment, and also having an observability across their entire IT infrastructure, their IT enterprise. And a full data platform is one way to have that, but having visibility from cradle to grave and where all the data was going and how it was being used was absolutely essential for the organizations that made the best of what was served up as a bad deal in the form of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a technical advisor, what major priorities stand out for modernization in government today from your perspective?
The priorities really have to be, cue the broken record, cloud. Because, and I don't just mean, let me say why, because a cloud environment will provide the agility, the speed, and the capacity that those legacy technologies that I mentioned before simply cannot. They cannot enable. The wires and pliers and those days of going into the data center and doing manual patches and all of that. That is just not the way to deliver services the way citizens are expecting them now. Cloud is the only way. And I want to give a real quick example. So think about you're going to do a renovation on your house. Well, let's say you have a house that's 100 years old. You can only put electrical tape around the wiring so long before you realize your wires are so out of code that you really need to rip all of it out and modernize your electricity, or you're going to have a fire, or you're going to, there's going to be some kind of problem. It's the same thing with technology. Well, it's an analogy. It's similar with IT technology infrastructure. There's only so much patching you can do until you just have to bite the bullet and rip it out, and put in what's modern, and that is cloud. One other thing, Wyatt, I would say is changing security mindset from the old perimeter defense mindset. I authenticate once and then I'm in, to what is called now a zero trust mindset. Not a new concept, but people are using that term zero trust more and more frequently. And that is basically trust nobody or trust no asset inside your environment, and verify at every step, and put some advanced capabilities inside your environment just to make sure that the right assets are connecting, that are moving through, and that your data is protected everywhere it goes. So those two things.
Well, lastly, after modernization, what comes next?
One of the things I think we need to be thinking about, back to how our lives are different. Some of it will go back to normal, the way it used to be, but a lot of our life is not going to go back to the way it was. So we need to be thinking about, now that we've pushed everyone into a modern IT environment, we need to be transforming the workforce. We need to be including every single person who's been touched by the pandemic, which is everyone, and helping them to understand what we mean by a cloud environment, or cybersecurity hygiene, or everyone is a data steward. And that's on leadership. Leadership needs to be upskilling, providing education opportunities, providing, there's all kinds of free software certifications from companies that employees can use and take advantage of. Because without empowering the workforce and empowering the citizenry, we're going to have a lot of technology capabilities out there that people don't know how to use. And frankly, and I'd like to end on this, Wyatt, there's been this huge gift given to agencies, and that is this injection of cash into the Technology Modernization Fund. I mean, it's been around for a couple of years, but really agencies have only dabbled. There've only been 12 projects until this year that agencies said, hey, I'll take some of that money. And now, with it being $1 billion, and just yesterday, actually another 500 million being put into the budget request for the quote skinny budget, there's real money in there. And so now is the time to take advantage of that. Use it to modernize your systems and your infrastructure, use it to upskill your workforce, and to bring everybody to a higher level of data literacy, so we can all be real users and get real value out of the investments in IT modernization.
Some great points. Well, Juliana, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your insights with us.
Thanks, Wyatt.